Yay, it's working now. Alrighty. So, now that I got this recording, hi everybody! I'm here to offend people today. Again. So, I am back with the Tumblr genders, and now we will be looking at the B's, and depending how many B's there are, maybe going to the C's, but I don't know. We'll find out later. Anyhow, now that everything looks like it's going nice and smoothly, let's pull up death. Okay, once again, I'm usually very calm with stuff, but with these things, I'm not very calm. So, if you don't want to see me kind of mocking stuff and genders, or you don't want to see me actually acknowledge certain non-binary genders as potentially being real or whatever, you can go somewhere else. Anyhow, I guess, well, y'all know me, so I guess I'll get started with this. Okay, we are in the B's, and the first gender is bat gender. C, nocturnal gender. Okay. I'm going to guess that it's either based off of bats or nocturnalness. Next gender, bigender. Yay! Something actually real-ish. Like I've said before, very non-binary still needs more scientific evidence in it, but I'm not going to say it doesn't exist. And on a sociological side, yeah. And, so don't forget, I can't see well, so on my screen, it doesn't show on the video. However, my screen is very zoomed in. I can only see kind of like this much of the screen at a time, more or less. So yeah, please keep in mind that if I go slow, it's because of that. And why are you being stupid thing? Okay, so once again, identifying as two genders may be static or fluid. So yeah, that's bigender, and usually that refers to male and female, as I've heard, but I'm gonna be honest, this kind of sounds like it could go with really any gender or whatever. Okay, bigender fluid. Being bigender with your gender fluctuating between the two. Wait. Oh! Okay. I think I get what it means. It's like, okay, one gender is fluid and the other gender is fluid, and you experience both of those genders, and that can kind of be, yeah, but you experience both of those genders at the same time. That's gotta feel complicated. That's gotta feel very complicated. I think, even for someone recognizing that as a thing, still you probably should get some mental health for that. Because, yeah, that just seems like a pain in the ass to do. Oh, goodness. Let's see. Next gender, biogender. A gender that is connected to nature in some way. Ah! But just your gender is not based off of naturiness, and it's not like do you pull your femininity from nature? Is that what's going on, or your masculinity, or whatever? That's okay. Whatever. Just fine. Whatever. Yeah. Okay. Next gender. Blizz gender. A gender that feels cold, snowy, and harsh when it's paired to another gender. It's also known as wint gender. You know what? Why can't they just put the why do I have to say wint gender? Why can't they just have full winter in there? Like nah. And as I've showed everybody in the last video, the definition of gender is like the social standard between masculinity and femininity, and where you feel like you stand there. Like, this is more of a descriptor of how you feel your gender. It's not an actual gender. It is not an actual gender. It's just, I can give you it's a descriptor. I can tell you that if that makes anyone feel better. Anyhow, I'm going to pretend like that doesn't exist. Okay, next gender is bog gender. A gender that feels like a bog, swamp, marsh, or similar ecosystem, also known as swamp gender. Donkey, respect my gender. Anyhow, I'm going to... Can we pretend like that doesn't exist, please? Please. Why do these exist? Why? I genuinely want to know someone who identifies as this, just because I am a huge person on perspectives. I love to understand other people's perspectives. Even if it's a stupid perspective, I still would like to understand it, where they're coming from, because that just seems so complicated. It's just terrifying. I'm gonna check my... Hold on. I'm gonna check my recording, make sure everything's still running smoothly. Yay, it's still running smoothly. So, going back to this. Okay, anyhow, back to the genders. Next, oh dear Lord. Borderline gender, or border fluid. A fluctuating gender experienced exclusively by people with borderline personality disorder, a gender identity lacking a firm grasp on one's identity while still experiencing gender to a varying degrees This is a long description. I'm gonna have to just I need to scroll a little bit just so I can completely read this. Let's see. On one's gender while still experiencing gender to varying degree, but having trouble pinning it down to just one label or identity. Having the sense of grasping at labels as much as possible to describe a gender, one keeps questioning because one keeps second guessing one's sense of self and consequently one's sense of gender. That's a long description. What do you identify as Porter gender? What's that? Just says this entire paragraph. Like, okay, as actually really good reference to how much of my screen I am seeing at a time, whereas all of you guys get to see this. The paragraph that I am reading, I can only see from the word. Hold on, let me get this. Okay, let me get this in better frame, and there. So I can only see from border gender, border fluid, and I cannot read past that to the right. And I can only see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. That is what I currently see at a time. So that's why it's going very slow. Also because I talk and don't know how to shut my mouth, which that usually causes me a lot of other problems too. Anyhow, back to this. Okay. So, for one, I do feel like this gender really, let's take out the, the whole borderline personality disorder aspect of it. And I feel like this is just, you're continuously questioning it. Like, this is a very long description for questioning your gender. That's what this is. That is exactly what this is. Like, gosh. And it's just, having, like, and it's fine to question your gender, that's fine, but don't pin it on having borderline or whatever. Just, please, don't. And don't be like, well, you don't understand borderline personality disorder or whatever, because I actually do, because I've had to do quite a bit of research on it, because I show several symptoms of it. So, to be a child, like, I can be a child sometimes. But anyhow, in all seriousness though, like, don't try to be like, you don't know what you're talking about or whatever. Because I actually do. And honestly, this is just a very long description for you keep second guessing yourself and you're questioning your gender, and because you really have a hard time, labeling down yourself. Like, that's fine. And you know what? Maybe you like a bunch of labels, and that's fine, because I do too. Like I've said before, I technically do identify as a non-binary person, technically, but that's because I like labels. And I'm willing to admit that. But people who are like, this is me, this is all me, and you need to respect my gender. No, that's just, and like, because I'm triggered. I don't even, if you get me started on triggers, I will, I have some interesting stories for you that as to why I'm like, suck it up. Anyhow, on to the next gender before I lose my mind. Boy flux. When one feels mostly, hold on, what time is it? When one feels mostly or all male most of the time, but experiences fluctuating intensities of male identity. This can be fluid with any other identity. Okay, gonna tell you something. That sounds closer into the range of demi-boy. Maybe it's a subset of demi-boy. That would be fine. But they want to, be like, no, it's all different. Everything's different because we're all snowflakes. Anyhow. Okay. So, let's see if I can't interpret this in a reasonable logic. So, you identify as male, and your gender fluctuate in the masculinity areas, sometimes maybe being more or less kind of like some sort of other mix of something in there, kind of like maybe you go from feeling all male to feeling like very androgynous masculinity or something like that. You're fluid, just very in the male range. Maybe occasionally you probably experience maybe something like pangender or bigender or something like that. Let's do this. Okay, next gender. Brevi gender. Well, let's see what it says, and maybe I'll have to repronounce that. A subset of gender fluid in which also, now I'm thinking about boy flux would probably be a good subset of gender fluid. A subset of gender fluid in which you feel your gender is never stable for long periods of time, but it constantly changes. That's the basic definition of gender fluid for the most part. Like heck, that's not even that much of a subset. That's just kind of a reiteration of gender fluid. But I don't know, maybe 1 second, 1 hour you're male, next hour you're female. I don't know. I'm gonna kind of throw that one in the air for now. Let's see. Burst gender. See? Spike gender. Well, next. Oh! That's all of the bees. Well, since like I already have enough long ones, let's go ahead and continue into the C's. Because why not? Because I kind of want to see more of these. Next gender is Cadden's gender. A gender that's easily influenced by music. Oh, cadence gender. Maybe? I don't know. A gender that's easily influenced by music. Okay. So, what your gender fluctuates based off of the music you are listening to. Like, once again, you're probably just, with a lot of these, you're probably experiencing something else that's not exactly gender that is changing, because yes, music can make you feel a lot of different things, and it can bring you in touch with your femininity, it can bring you in touch with your masculinity, it can just kind of bring you in at peace or whatever. But I think what's going on with this one is people are mistaking, feeling more masculine or more feminine or more androgynous or whatever for, for gender altogether, whenever it's like, no. Okay, I'm gonna go to the next gender. Catogender. A subcategory of polygender identities, gender fluid, bigender, trigender, etc., to have a gender to fall back on, or one that you always go back to. Okay, subcategory of polygender identities. Okay, blah blah blah. Da, da, da. So examples of that: to have a gender to fall back on, or one that you always go back to. God. Why? That's. Okay. So, just forget subcategory. So, I don't know what you people are feeling, honestly. All of you are just, all this Tumblr stuff, it's cancer. That's what it is. I'm going to the next gender because I don't want to have to. I really don't feel like pulling this one apart and just explaining everything of it, because there's a lot to explain there, and I'm not going to waste my time on something like that. Okay. Cato gender. Let's see what this is. Okay, a gender which has been cut away by a traumatic event. Boy. Okay. So, I think my dad would probably think I identify as that, honestly. Just because I've had so many bad experiences with females. I've had so many bad experiences. Trying to re-find where I'm at. But, a gender which has been cut away by a traumatic event. Gosh. I mean, I don't know, maybe someone's so traumatized from something that they just are like, I'm not that gender at all. But I feel like if, that sounds more like a descriptor for gender than an actual gender. People need to learn how to separate descriptors from actual genders. Okay, next gender. Kale gender, I think. A gender which shares qualities with outer space. Oh, wait. I was gonna say that was probably more celestial, but sail gender? Okay. A gender which shares qualities with outer space or as an aesthetic of similarities to space, stars, and nebulas. Didn't I just go over this with the A's? There was another gender called astral gender, and it was a simplified one of this, just connected to space, but shares qualities with outer space. What gender is outer space? Because we gotta give everything a gender. Because who knows? Those damn scientists. They better start correctly gendering those black holes and stars and other things. I am being triggered. But, just... Okay, as I said in my last video, there is... Okay, part of my major is very astronomy based. So seeing this, I'm just like, no, that's not okay. That is not okay. That is so not okay. I do not study your gender. Just... Okay. Like I've said before, the definition of gender. Masculinity and femininity within the social culture, society, or culture. Gender. Space has no qualities within that. I should know. I'm going into astrophysics. And I am very well aware that space has nothing to do with gender. So take your little whatever you want to call yourself and leave my beautiful space alone, because I love space. Anyhow, next gender before I lose my brain. This is one of those genders I had to that was said in the A's that I wasn't able to look up yet. So, Kant's gender. Agender as base gender, but experiences fluid, fluctuating gender feeling in tandem with their emotions. These gender feelings may confuse or upset the individual and cause their emotional state to go haywire, which causes more gender changes, also known as a gender fluid. Okay. So agender is a base for this, but it can fluctuate genders with their emotions, which seriously, no, just no. These gender feelings may confuse or upset the individual and cause their... Okay, if your emotional state is causing you to fluctuate, you need to, like, really pull your crap together, go see a therapist, or go lock yourself in a mental place or something like that. Because, yeah. Anyhow. So my original thought with this, with it being agender fluid, is it just fluctuates back and forth with more genderless identities, but kind of always comes around to that or something like that. Maybe fluctuates over another gender. I don't know, something like that. Anyhow, that's a very long description for a very someone who needs help and gets really super emotional, and their gender is just changing with that emotion, probably because of stereotype. Let me guess, when you're angry you feel more masculine, when you're crying you feel more feminine, right? I hate to be stereotyping, but as we all know, there's always truth in stereotypes. No matter how bad we want to say there isn't, there is. But don't stereotype, because that's just kind of an asshole thing to do. Next gender, canis gender. A small dog-like gender. No! No! Raven, there is a gender that is dog-like. Definition small dog. Anyhow, I'm gonna pretend like I didn't just walk away. That's how ridiculous this is. Okay. Let me ask. Actually, I'm not gonna ask this question, because I can almost guarantee you this question will come up on the gender bench. So, and once again, that's the YouTube channel that me and my friends have created, that we are kind of similar to what I'm doing here, but a little worse. A lot more horribleness, and it's for people of 18 and older. So, small dog-like gender. That's not even within the definition of dog-like. It's not. It's just not. Just, that is a pure bullcrap gender. That is so not even real. Like, it can't even be subcategory. It can't be a subset of it. No, that's just that's just one of those genders that just flat out does not exist. Like the space ones. Like, I like, your gender can't be dog-like. It just no, please, no. I'm done with you and your genderiness. Anyhow, next one is Capri gender. A capricious, rapidly changing, untrackable gender. So, gender fluid? Maybe a subset of it? Let's check my time here. Okay. Yeah, I'm just gonna say that's a gender fluid. That's what that is. Let's take out that name and just say gender fluid. Okay, hold on. I lost where I was at. Okay. There we go. Okay. Karma gender. A gender which is poetic and rhythmic in nature. That sounds more like how you experience your gender. Like a gender descriptor, not an actual gender. This is just, why does this exist? When your level, cast flux. When your level of indifference towards your gender fluctuates. I mean, in all fairness, if you're indifferent, you don't really need a label for it. You really don't. Anyhow. Like, no, just no. Indifference towards your gender fluctuates. So sometimes you care what gender you are. That's called being a human. That is called being a freaking human being. Don't mind me, I'm just going crazy. I'm gonna need therapy after this. Actually, I actually do need to reschedule my therapist appointment. But not actually for this. I'm not that bad, I promise. I'm just being stupefied and I don't even know what I feel anymore. Cast gender. Feeling if the very concept of gender is unimportant to you, that is called being cisgendered. Or like, because you don't really think about it, and I've talked about this a little bit when I was up in the A area, but once again, it's kind of just, I mean, at this point, it's just repeating itself. Why? Tired. I'm just like, if it's unimportant to you, you don't need a gender identity. Like, you don't need a specific thing to tell you what you are. Like, just go with cisgendered. Or, because, obviously, if it's unimportant to you, you're probably not going to transition. So, it's very unlikely you're trans if it's unimportant to you, because, well, in order to really transition at all, even socially, it's got to be at least somewhat important to you to put in the effort. Anyhow, so this is basically cisgendered snowflake extreme. That's what that is. So, next gender, cave gender. Having a trapped or imprisoned gender. Once again, that's more of a descriptor for gender, not an actual gender. So, what to do. It's just, I'm gonna leave it at that. Just, it's a descriptor. That's what that is. That's not an actual gender. That's more of a descriptor. So don't sit there and try to act like it's anything different. Next gender, Cavus gender. For people with depression, you feel one gender when not depressed and another when depressed. The gender felt whilst depressed can be attached as a suffix, etc. Cavus boy, Cavus girl, Cavus non-binary, Cavus ace. Oh god. Why? Why does this exist? Okay. So as many of these gender identities as I've seen so far, and I'm only in the C's, based off of the fact that a lot of these are based off of emotion, I'm kind of curious if there is, like, if a lot of people are just really confusing their emotional states for genders and not really realizing it's just a feeling of masculinity and femininity or androgynous. Because I feel like that's what's going on. However, like, gosh, I feel like going through all these, you guys are gonna find out all the mental health issues I have, because I'm just like, yeah, depression definitely can make you feel one way, but honestly, it's not as, it's just, I would put my money on when someone feels depressed, they probably think they feel more feminine, because of course sadness and emotionalness is often attached to the female gender. Of course, as someone who's like, who needs gender roles, I'm just kind of like, yeah, that's kind of stupid, but anyhow, a lot of, hi. My girlfriend came in. There's a gender based off of depression. So, yeah, I'm gonna pretend like this doesn't exist. I'm kind of baffled. I'm kind of wondering, though, because I've seen so many genders based off of emotional states. I wonder if there's a part of the brain that's actually connected to your emotions, that connects your emotions and how your gender acts and feels and stuff like that. But I think most of it's probably people just going about it as masculinity and femininity, but not realizing that that's just feeling masculine or feminine, not gender. Anyhow, I'm gonna stop on my tirade with that one and go to send gender. When your gender changes between one gender and the polar opposite, or a gender that can be summed up as an unidentifiable thing which manifests as hundreds of different genders or none at all at any given time at the same time and or separately fluid and ever changing. Okay, let me just make this clear. There are not hundreds of genders. I don't care what you say. It's just, unless you are going to give me a very scientific breakdown of how there's hundreds of genders, yeah, that's a load of bull. Just gonna say that. I mean, God. At the same time, or separately. Oh, God. So, let's reread this. When your gender changes between one gender and the polar opposite, or a gender that can be summed up as unidentifiable. Okay, this is just a very complex version of gender fluid. That's what I'm reading here. Like, I'm gonna say half is definitely not a real gender. The other half of it is just not okay. Half of it's not an actual gender. Like a quarter of it, or maybe even a third of it, is like more of a descriptor. No, it's more questioning, and the rest is more of a descriptor. That's what's going on. That's what that is. They really need to learn to separate. Why do I even try? These are genders from Tumblr. Why even? Can I meet some of these people who actually identifies these? I just really want to know what's going on in their minds. I really do. Okay, next gender. Synod gender. A gender identity heavily influenced by one's parents. Okay. I'm gonna be perfectly honest here. You are not exactly normal if your gender is not somewhat influenced by your parents. Like, the only reason that would be reasonable if you're like Batman and don't have parents. Just the only actual superhero series I've ever actually watched. My brain kind of just went into and heavily influenced by one's parents. I mean, of course, your gender is always going to be pretty heavily influenced by your parents, though. Like, even for transgender people, you know, a lot of questioning your gender is because you were so influenced by your parents. And then your parents want to throw a big pissy fit because you're like, hey, I'm not really this. But, yeah, no, I mean, for one, unless your parents are also very mentally ill, that should still be confined to male or female. And if you kind of have some decent parents, maybe androgynous or non-binary-ish. Okay, next word. Next gender. Heterofluid. Yeah, I think. When you are heterogender, and your feelings fluctuate between masculinity and femininity and neutral or neutral. Hold on, let me scroll a bit. This might take me a moment, but we'll get there. Oh, went too high up. Okay. This is taking me a moment because, yeah, okay. So let's read centrogender first, because that would make some sense to what that is. A non-binary gender, which with specifically masculine or feminine or neutral feelings, can be used as setter girl, setter boy. Okay, so the way I'm reading this right now for the examples is setter girl, setter boy, etc. It's like, oh, that flows nicely. Anyhow, okay, I would say that sounds more like you're non-binary, but sometimes with a little extra labeliness to it. So fluidness of it is, of course, that, but fluid. I just, it's really early in the day. I really shouldn't be this tired. Like, for real. Maybe I should turn on light. I think that'd be a good idea. But, so centrogender, seterogender, that is a lot more of a more realistic and logicalness of it, and I like that it's using more feminine, masculine, because that is more of that, but maybe you do feel more masculine or feminine or whatever. I don't know. Like, I'm not gonna say this doesn't exist, but I'm gonna say that you better give some darn good reasoning for why you specifically identify as this. Okay, next gender. Oh, chaos gender. When your gender does a lot of things that have no identifiable pattern or logic. Gender descriptor. Moving on. You guys already have a good idea of my opinion on that. I butcher names really bad. Sarah Sierra gender, something like that. Let's see, a fluid gender that, I'm gonna, just because I probably also have a couple blind people out there, I probably should actually start spelling these, but CHEIRA gender. A fluid gender that is always or often in opposition to its owner's desires or manipulating towards its owner. A fluid gender that is always or often in opposition to the owners. Okay, okay, I'm gonna be honest, that just sounds like being trans. That just sounds like being transgender. Just specifically off of in opposition to its owner's desires. Like, I don't know. I mean, like, that's, I'm gonna say, that that's I'm gonna say that's not a gender. That's just, I mean, if someone wants to give me a logical, you know, reasoning for why this is an actual gender, or maybe a gender descriptor or something like that, let me know. But altogether, I do feel like this is just not a gender. And of course, that is my opinion on that one. But I don't know. We can see where that goes. Okay, next gender, Cirque gender. A gender that feels so magical and grand as to be indescribable. A gender that feels so magical and grand as to be indescribable. And once again, I should really be spelling these genders out for y'all. SIRC gender. So that's how that's spelled. A gender that feels magical and grand as to be indescribable. I feel like a better name for that one would be Disney gender. Just like magic. Oh, it's magic, you know. Anyhow, I'm not gonna sing on here. Or maybe I will, who knows. So that's more of a descriptor, I guess. Anyhow, I guess you guys understand what I mean by descriptors by now, so I'm gonna just continue on. The next one is cloud gender, and I actually pronounced that one very accurately, so I'm not gonna spell it. A gender which can't be fully realized or seen clearly due to depersonalization or derealization disorders. Let me tell you a little something. Let me tell you a little interesting thing about myself. A gender which can't be fully realized or seen clearly due to... Okay. I can actually have some say on this because I actually have these. I actually have both of those. Possibly even worse. Dear God. So, while yes, depersonalization and derealizations, those disorders, and I really should talk to my therapist more about this now I'm thinking about it, but with those disorders, because that's kind of been a newly recognized thing with me that I've definitely experienced all my life, but only just got some recognition on it. So, for one, depersonalization, of course, is being very disconnected from yourself, from your body, from just really you. Derealization is how I like to best describe it. It's kind of like seeing the world through a glass, or like as if you're watching a movie or something. And honestly, it sucks. It really sucks sometimes. And you can really lose some time when you get really into it, and technically it's a defense mechanism, mostly due to trauma. But However, with that info for all of you about those disorders, uh, can't fully be realized or seen clearly due to those things. It's like, no, don't pin your questioning of gender on those things, because yes, while those definitely do make things very difficult, and I'm going to be honest, I probably didn't realize that I didn't realize my gender until later in life, probably because of these specific disorders. But I'm not going to make a whole gender off of it. Especially because, as I've said before, I got kind of, I'm more like an androgynous male-ish person, but for the simplicity of going off of binary male, yeah, this one really got me going. This is probably gonna take up a lot of time, but hey, you guys chose to watch it, so anyhow, yeah, like I said, I mean, I probably didn't realize my gender as soon as I probably would have because of these, but I'm not gonna have that. I'm not gonna create cloud gender because of those. That's just, that's just still within the questioning area. Maybe that's a nice descriptor and reason for it. Yes, I will give you that. But it is still a questioning of your gender, and you don't need to make an entire gender based off of it. It's fine to say you're questioning your gender. That's perfectly fine. And the people who are going to judge you are probably going to judge you anyways if you did choose a gender. And if you choose this gender, they're just going to judge you worse, to be honest. To be honest. Anyhow, the potato is done ranting on that. Anyhow, so the next gender is cocoon gender. By the way, before I continue, if you guys have any more questions about, like, honestly, almost any of the dissociating disorders, because depersonalization, derealization are within that, I've been having to do quite a few researches on, dissociativeness, and if you have questions about that, feel free to ask. And I guess you could say I'm very depersonalized about the questions, so feel free to ask. That was a bad pun. That was bad. I'm gonna continue. Love me, subscribe. JK, you don't have to do that because I'm not that desperate. Anyhow, now to actually continue. Cocoon gender, a gender that has not come out yet or has yet to emerge in its full form. How many times do I have to tell you people? It's that is still questioning your gender. That is questioning. That's maybe a descriptor of questioning, but it's still questioning your gender. Moving on. Oh gosh. cogito fluid. COG. I think that's nigh. Yeah, that's nigh. Have to get really close. Sometimes I's and L's look alike to me. COGITO fluid. And before I read that description, I'm going to go down to the next one that says the same thing but gender instead of fluid. A gender that can only exist when you think about it. It is quiet until called to attention, or is characterized as feeling genderless until a gender is consciously chosen. Next, so with the fluid, a gender that is fluid only when one thinks about it. Oh God. Okay. That is called being a normal person. That is called that, you don't really think about your gender, which is a very common thing. People don't constantly think about their gender, with the exception of some people with really bad dysphoria, which honestly, you're not going to want really bad dysphoria. Like, I mean, it definitely becomes present to me for sure, but like, even without like thinking about it, but it's just like, of course, even a cisgendered person, they're gonna kind of have some thoughts on gender and how they feel in their gender if they're thinking about it. Moving on. That is a very plain and simple thing, and yeah. Anyhow, next gender, call gender. COL gender. A gender that feels like it is on mute. Once again, that's more of a descriptor, you guys. The next gender. Oh, it's called gender, but with 2 L's. Having too many simultaneously genders to describe each one. There's not that many. Just let's be logical, people. Can we not be logical? Oh boy. Oh boy. Color gender.
Oh boy.
Even my girlfriend is just like, oh boy. A gender associated with one or more colors and feeling, hues, emotions, and objects associated with that color can be categorized by the specific colors, such as pink gender, violet gender, etc. So, my only thought is, so if you're a really big OU fan, would you identify as Crimson gender? Or if you are an OSU fan, would you be Orange gender? Now, this is one of those genders where the only logical explanation out of it is the stereotyping of color with genders But even there, it's like, no, gender is not based off of a color. If you feel an extreme attachment, like you are part of a color or something like that, like you just feel this strong connection with a color, that is fine. But it's not a gender. Moving on. Com gender. C-O-M gender. To experience gender, polar opposite of a gender. That's like pangender or something, or polygender, or whatever you want to call it. That's basically saying you do feel gender. So, I mean, that shouldn't even, that description, that name right there should just not even exist. Let's poof it out of existence. Poof. Poof. Anyhow, moving on. Comogender. When you know you aren't cisgendered, but you settle for your assigned gender for the time being. Commo boy, or commo girl are examples. Well, that's, I'm gonna be honest, that could very well be more into the demi gender area. That's, I do feel like that's more of a descriptor for, that could be a subset for certain gender identities. Because, like, I have a friend who, she is non-binary, but, you know, she's perfectly fine with staying the gender she is, like, and that's fine. And there are other people out there who are fine, you know, honestly, if you're fine with identifying as the gender you are, you don't even need this label. You don't even need it. Unless you're just super labeling, that's all hunky-dory. Like, jeez, I'm moving on. Condi gender. C-O-N-D-I gender. A gender only felt under certain circumstances. And ear itches. Okay. I'm gonna tell you something. Most likely, you are confusing yourself for feeling masculine or feminine with that, and you're taking it to being, oh, I feel a little bit masculine, I feel a little bit feminine, so I am this. Like, okay, honestly, if you experience gender dysphoria, like, you're kind of freaking out because you don't have a dick, or you don't have a vagina, or you don't have boobs, or something like that, let me know if you actually identify as something like this, because, and like, you actually feel like you're supposed to be the other gender, like, in certain circumstances, and of course, you know, with some of these other ones I've looked over, but like, I mean, for one, that can also just be a subcategory of gender fluid, or a descriptor for gender fluid. Anyhow, next, contigender. A gender that flows through space and time and constantly changes and is always moving, or a gender of a related to space and time. Oh boy. Oh boy. Okay. My only thought is, so this is Albert Einstein's gender. Anyhow, just long, awkward pausing. Just like, wow. Okay. So it's related to space and time. And boy, I'm just kind of like, really? Really? Like, okay, the definition of gender would not even allow this gender to exist. Therefore, I'm just kind of gonna be simple, and as you guys already know about my opinions on space and time, and especially space and time. That's my physics and my spaceman. Like, no, don't take that away from me. Don't make it your gender. Anyhow, oh gosh. Yeah. That's... Why? Okay, next gender. Koryu gender. A gender affected by flashbacks. Well, for one, you probably got some trauma going on with flashbacks. And if it's affected by it, once again, it just sounds like a confusion with feeling masculine, feeling feminine, and I don't think you need a whole gender for that. Oh no! Cosmic gender. Okay, a gender so vast and or complicated that it can only be processed as a bit at a time. Is it a gender you cannot experience all at once, infinite in its possibility? It may contain relevant subgenders that define a part of the vast whole. This is not a gender. This is just not a gender, okay? Like, that's not even how you should be feeling your gender. Like, maybe a gender descriptor, maybe, but even there, that one's kind of like what, I mean, you know, your gender is just kind of who you are, and especially in the moment, like, it's not something you, I mean, for most people, for almost all of the population out there, they're, you know, even when you are, you know, your gender is generally very consistent, even if you're trans, like, or hell, even if you're a non-binary person, usually there it's still a very consistent gender. But this is, you know, and you experience that gender in the moment. You experience your you experience it all of the time. Like, I mean, it's not something you experience with time. It's just kind of part of who you are. That's just, I mean, yeah, it takes time to kind of come to terms with being a certain gender if you're not cis, to be perfectly honest. But, like, this is a really, if this is anything, it's a descriptor. That's what that is. And even there, it's still a really bad descriptor. That's just, you know, I'm gonna continue on because this is like, no, just stop, people. Okay, let's scroll some more. Ah, went too far. Oh, I'm almost done with the C's though. That's good. Okay, the next gender is cryptogender. Gender identity that one can't discern, describe, or define in words, and confuse or puzzle the owner. Once again, that's more like questioning your identity. And yeah, you know what, that's just once again, that's just a definition of questioning your gender identity. Maybe it's a descriptor for questioning your gender identity, but it's still questioning your gender. It's not a gender. God. Okay, next gender. Christagender. A fluid gender that, let me spell that. Crysta gender. A fluid gender that is experienced as one's gender being fractured or broken into pieces and put back together again. Oh my goodness. Okay, that's just a weird way to describe how you experience your gender. Like, I would say that's a descriptor. Once again, not an actual gender, just kind of a more description, especially how you experience fluidity, I guess. And just, gosh, like, that doesn't even make sense though, because it's kind of like a gender, a concept, what you feel as far as being masculine or feminine cannot be broken unless, like, I don't know, like, if you're a man and someone kind of humiliates you, or if you're a woman and someone humiliates you, but even there, it's just, that just sounds more like an emotional state of mind or something. That doesn't really sound like a gender, but whatever. I'll say it's a descriptor. I'll say it's a descriptor, and you can get away with that, but don't try to sit there and try to tell me it's an actual gender. Next gender and last gender for now, because this is the last one in the C's. Cyclo gender. CICLO gender. A gender identity that changes with one's menstrual cycle. Oh, God. Well, we know certain people can't be this gender for sure. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about this one. Oh, dear. I almost want to say it's a real gender just because of how mood swingy some women get. Like, oh god, I shouldn't be laughing as much as I am on this. But I'm just like, a small part of me just wants to be like, well, that's sexist. Maybe a man feels like they should be having a menstrual cycle, huh? Huh? God. I, you know, to be honest, some women get so wacky on their periods that, like, I almost want to say this is an actual gender. I really do. Because, like, not to seem like a, not to seem rude or anything, and I definitely am, but I'm gonna really seem rude here, but jeez, like, okay, as emotional and out there as some women get, I wouldn't be surprised if someone actually feels a complete shift in their gender with that. Although, honestly, if you feel anything besides feminine, you're gonna. It's gonna suck for you. Um, if you. Someone let me know if you actually identify as this cyclogender. I mean, because to be fair, okay, back when I was, back when, before I started testosterone, and, I did, actually, my dysphoria was actually went down a lot because I did feel a lot more feminine on my menstrual cycle. So, I can kind of understand this, and, like, and I think it's just because, your hormones are really kicking in like crazy and all that fun stuff. And I don't know, like, I know most trans guys usually feel more dysphoria around that time of the month, but I honestly felt less. I think it was just because of the hormones that were going through my brain. And of course, even now, being on testosterone, when I would normally have that, I do feel slightly more feminine. However, I still completely identify as male, even during those times of the month. So, once again, definitely, gosh, just because of how your hormones act up during that time, I do want to kind of say that, and because there are hormone imbalances that happen that are specifically related to being gender, not like emotional, mental illnesses where, yeah, I mean, yes, your state of mind does change a bit, but with this one, your hormones, like the female hormones, are actually doing stuff. So, yeah. And I mean, glad to not have that anymore. Really glad. It's such a blessing. Anyhow, I did not expect that one to catch me off guard like that. Once again, I'm kind of throwing this one in the air because, as I said before, the female hormones do funny things with menstrual cycles. So maybe it's a real gender, but at the same time, you could also be simply, or you could be like me and just experience feeling more feminine around that time because you have blood coming out your crotch. just saying, like, because I don't want this kind of labeliness on me because of that. Like, no, I'm still straight up male or demi boy or whatever. Anyhow, that was fun. I think I'm calling that a good round. This is probably a long ass video. Where the hell? How even? And doop. And so yeah, you know, this has been an interesting time. It's been very interesting going through these genders, and I hope to see you all again on my next video. Yay! Bye! And let's stop.